The story was told as part of a chilling winter horror series set deep within the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina, a place known for its breathtaking beauty during the day, but one that transformed into something far more unsettling once night took over. Locals often said that these mountains didn't just hold forests and winding roads. They held memories, lingering energy, and sometimes things that refused to leave. It followed a young man named Ethan, a typical city resident from Chicago, someone who had grown up surrounded by constant noise, bright lights, and endless crowds. In December 2023, his family planned a short vacation to the mountains, hoping for a peaceful escape from their busy lives. Traveling with him were his parents, his 17-year-old cousin Ryan, along with his uncle and aunt. The plan was simple. His uncle had some work near Asheville, and once that was finished, they would drive further into a smaller town where a distant relative, Mrs. Harper, lived. Everything had been planned carefully, but like most stories that slowly turn into nightmares, things didn't go according to plan. The meeting ran late. Dinner stretched longer than expected. Conversations dragged on, and by the time they finally said their goodbyes and got back into the car, it was already 12:30 a.m. The roads outside the town were quiet, too quiet, almost unnaturally empty. Ethan's mother suggested they stay the night and leave in the morning, her voice carrying a faint unease she couldn't explain. But his uncle, confident from having driven those routes before, insisted that traveling at night would be quicker and easier, so they left. At first, the drive felt completely normal. Occasional streetlights lit the road, and the path ahead seemed simple enough to follow. The car heater hummed softly, filling the vehicle with warmth, and the rhythmic motion of the drive almost lulled them into comfort. But slowly, almost without anyone noticing, everything began to change. The streetlights disappeared. The road narrowed. The forest thickened. Civilization faded into nothingness. Soon, the only light guiding them came from the car's headlights. The silence outside was deeply unsettling. There were no passing cars, no distant sounds, just darkness and trees stretching endlessly on both sides, like silent watchers observing their every move. Ethan and Ryan tried distracting themselves with their phones, but the signal kept weakening until it disappeared completely. Messages wouldn't send. The internet stopped working. It felt as though they had been cut off from the rest of the world entirely. Around 1 a.m., his uncle slowed the car and pulled over near what he believed was a scenic viewpoint. Everyone stepped out to stretch after the long drive. The place felt wrong, quiet in a way that didn't feel natural. Not peaceful, just empty. A little distance away, barely visible in the dim light, stood an old, rusted school bus. Its paint had peeled away in large patches, and its windows were cracked or completely broken. It looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Beside it were a few broken structures, their shapes barely recognizable, swallowed by darkness. Ethan tried to take pictures, but his phone showed no signal at all, completely dead. Ryan checked his too, but it was the same. They brushed it off as nothing more than a dead zone. After a few minutes, they got back into the car and continued driving. But about 20 minutes later, something felt off again. The car slowed down, and then they saw it. The same clearing, the same bus, the same broken structures. For a moment, no one spoke. His uncle frowned, confusion creeping into his voice as he muttered that he must have taken a wrong turn. Carefully, he turned the car around and chose a different route. This time, he paid attention to everything, every turn, every sign, every curve in the road. But after another 15 minutes, they were back again, the same place. The silence inside the car grew heavier, pressing against them. A third time, a fourth time, no matter where they went, every road led them back to that same clearing. It didn't make sense. It wasn't possible. Ethan felt a cold unease settle deep in his chest. His mother had started whispering prayers under her breath. His aunt looked pale, trying to remain calm but clearly shaken. Even his uncle's confidence had begun to crack. And then, during the fourth return, something changed. Inside the bus, there was someone. A dark silhouette sat in the driver's seat, still, motionless, visible only because of the car's headlights. Everyone saw it. This time, there was no doubt. Hoping for help, or perhaps clinging desperately to logic, his uncle suggested that someone might be inside and could guide them out. He asked Ethan and Ryan to go check. They didn't want to, but they went anyway. With their phone flashlights on, they slowly walked toward the bus. The closer they got, the more unsettling it felt. Up close, the bus looked even older, as if it were decaying into itself. The air around it felt colder, heavier, and the silence. It was absolute. No wind, no insects, no distant sounds, just their own footsteps pressing into the ground. Ethan reached the door and hesitated before shining his flashlight inside. His heart dropped. The bus was empty, completely empty. They checked everything, every seat, every corner, nothing. Just dust, dry leaves, and the unmistakable signs of long abandonment. And yet, they had all seen someone sitting there. Terrified, they ran back to the car. Panic began to rise. Desperate, his uncle decided they needed a better view of the surroundings. Maybe from the edge of the clearing, they could figure out where the road was leading. This time, everyone went together. As they walked, Ethan noticed a strange smell. Burning. At first, he thought it might be a campfire. But when the beam of the flashlight lifted, the truth revealed itself. It wasn't a viewpoint. It was a hidden cremation ground. Fresh ash covered parts of the ground. Several platforms stood scattered around, some empty, others stained. At the center was a recently used site, still faintly smoking, the outline of a burned body barely visible. The air felt thick, heavy, as if something unseen was watching them. Ethan's mother screamed. His uncle didn't hesitate. He shouted for everyone to run. They rushed back to the car, panic taking over completely. Doors slammed, the engine roared to life. This time, his uncle didn't care about directions. He just drove, fast, straight, without looking back, and somehow, the road changed. They didn't return to the clearing again. After what felt like hours, they finally reached Mrs. Harper's house. It was still early morning, but none of them felt relief. Only exhaustion and lingering fear. When they told her everything, she listened calmly. Too calmly. She explained that certain places in the mountains carried strong energy, especially near burial or cremation grounds. She said that sometimes entities could manipulate space, creating loops, illusions, even figures, to trap people. She told them they were lucky. They had left in time. They hadn't allowed it to come with them, or so they thought. For the next 2 days, things seemed normal, but Ryan wasn't. He grew quieter with each passing hour. He stared into nothing for long periods, as if listening to something no one else could hear. On the third night, he finally spoke. He said he had been hearing footsteps outside his window, every night, circling the house, never stopping. That same night, Ethan woke to faint sounds in the hallway. Ryan's bed was empty. Following the noise, Ethan found him standing near the front door, still, silent, then slowly. Ryan unlocked it. Ethan rushed forward and turned him around. His face looked wrong, his eyes were empty. And then Ryan smiled, a wide, unnatural smile. In a voice that didn't belong to him, he whispered, "It followed us." The door creaked open. Cold air rushed inside. And there, under the faint porch light, stood a tall, shadowy figure, watching, waiting. Ryan began walking toward it. Ethan tried to stop him, but his strength felt unnatural, like he was being pulled by something far stronger. The figure outside raised its arms slightly, calling him. Then suddenly, the lights flickered violently. Mrs. Harper rushed in, chanting something urgently, clutching a small object tightly. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. For a moment, everything went silent. Ryan collapsed. The door slammed shut. The figure disappeared. But that wasn't the end. That was only the beginning. The next morning, Ryan remembered nothing, but something in him had changed. His movements felt slower, his expressions delayed. Sometimes he responded seconds too late, as if something else inside him was deciding what to say. The family decided to leave immediately. As they drove away, the mountains stretched behind them, silent and still. Ethan sat quietly, trying to convince himself it was over, until he noticed something in Ryan's phone reflection. a faint figure, sitting right beside him. Ethan's breath caught. He slowly turned. Nothing. But when he looked back at the reflection, the figure was clearer now, smiling, not at Ryan, at him. That night back in Chicago, Ethan woke to a sound. Footsteps, not outside, inside his room, slow, deliberate, circling his bed. His body froze. He didn't move, didn't breathe. And then, he heard it. A whisper, right next to his ear. "You brought me home." Ethan shut his eyes tightly, his heart pounding violently. When he finally gathered the courage to look, he wasn't alone. And this time, there was nowhere left to run. The Chicago skyline, once a symbol of safety and electric permanence, now looked like a jagged row of teeth waiting to close. Ethan lay paralyzed in his bed, the familiar hum of the city replaced by a silence so dense it felt almost physical. The whisper, "You brought me home," was no longer just a sound. It had become a vibration that settled deep into his bones. He didn't scream. He couldn't. His voice felt buried, as if replaced with the same dry ash he had seen in that Appalachian clearing. Slowly, his eyes drifted toward the vanity mirror across the room. In the dim glow of a distant street lamp, he saw his reflection. But he wasn't alone. The shadowy figure from the porch was no longer just a silhouette. It had taken form, a horrifying anatomy of decay. It stood directly behind his headboard, its elongated charcoal black fingers resting gently on Ethan's hair, almost like a twisted imitation of comfort. Then it leaned forward into the light. It didn't have a face, only a hollow, charred surface, shaped like his own. "Ryan," Ethan wheezed weakly, his voice barely more than air. From the hallway, the door creaked open. Ryan walked in. His movements were fluid, yet disturbingly unnatural, like a puppet controlled by unsteady hands. He didn't look at Ethan. Instead, he walked to the window and began peeling the skin around his fingernails, his expression blank, his eyes wide and empty. "It's not Ryan anymore, Ethan," the entity behind the bed whispered. Its voice shifted, blending into a chilling harmony of his mother, his uncle, and Mrs. Harper. "We are the memories the mountains couldn't hold, and you gave us a vessel of steel and glass to carry us into the hive." Ethan suddenly felt a burning heat. He looked down. His bed sheets were turning gray, ash. It was pouring from his own pores, spilling silently onto the floor, gathering like a growing grave beneath him. He tried to move his legs, but they were stiff, heavy, unresponsive, like the wooden platforms from the cremation ground. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a notification, no signal, then another, then dozens. The screen flickered to life. It showed a grainy live feed of his own room. But in the video, he wasn't alone. The room was full. Dozens of charred figures stood packed together, shoulder to shoulder, their hollow eyes reflecting the cold, digital glow. The figure behind him gripped his jaw, forcing his mouth open. "Don't worry," it hissed, its breath carrying the smell of burning pine and flesh. The loop didn't break. It only expanded. Ethan looked at Ryan one last time. Ryan turned slowly, his jaw unhinged wider than humanly possible, his mouth filled with gray ash. Outside, the sounds of Chicago, sirens, trains, distant voices began to fade. One by one, the lights in nearby buildings flickered out, swallowed by a creeping mountain mist that had no place in the city. Ethan tried to blink, but even that felt impossible. As darkness consumed the room, a crushing realization settled deep within him. He wasn't Ethan anymore. He was a door, and he had left it wide open. In the morning, the apartment was found perfectly clean. No ash, no signs of struggle. Just Ethan and Ryan sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a switched-off television. Their expressions were identical, unblinking, smiling. When the police asked if they were okay, they responded together, in perfect unison. Their voices carried something distant, something ancient, something that didn't belong in Chicago. "We're finally home,"